Greetings, greetings, greetings. What's happening? Okay, on this episode, what I want to do is that I want to kind of take you into some of the information that I was speaking on in the Secret Vatican and kind of expound on a certain portion of that video. For those of you that haven't seen that video, maybe you can go back. It's a video that I dropped just a few days ago, a couple days back, and you can kind of dissect that video and get into that video so that you can kind of more so understand this video. And on that video, I'm not going to be speaking on the Vatican on this video, but on that video, I pointed out a topic of discussion that was centered around Nimrod. And I talked about like how Nimrod was a self-governing being, and Nimrod was considered to be rebellious against the hierarchy and the structure that was on this planet in his particular time. And it's a reason why I want to focus on that, because I believe that a lot of the stories that you read about in the Bible and things of that nature, these are like video clips, or these are like portions, significant points in our history and in our creation. And you have to remember that when you talk about creation, like the Master always taught us, when you talk about creation, you're talking about something that was grown and something that took time to manifest. See, creation, when you look up the term creation, it means to grow. And you have to remember that the Bible is basically what's called the birth record of this dispensation or this pocket of time, and that's why it's such an important book. When you talk about something that was birthed, like for instance a baby is birthed, but you have to remember that the baby, before it was birthed, it had to be created or had to be grown in the womb. And the birth represented an event that was based on a series of other events in the growth period, and it's like the final product or the final manifestation. So when you say, for instance, like when you talk about your natal chart or your birth chart, this is a birth or this is an event in the cosmos, but you have to remember that the planets and the things like that in your natal chart had to align a certain way before the birth could take place. So this would be the creation aspect. So in the 9 months that you were in your mother's womb, there were different transits, the Venus transit, different transits that may have took place to get you to a point of being birthed. So this is the final creation. And I'm pointing this out because many conscious people tend to drop the Bible, and when they decide that they're going to be conscious, the first thing that comes to their mind is that everything that they learned in religion is a lie. So why look into the Bible and why read the Bible? Because all the stuff that I taught when I was a child, the Bible was a lie, because the Bible, most conscious people for the most part know that the Bible has been plagiarized and there's many versions of the Bible and things of that nature. So they just tend to put it down. And most conscious people don't really like looking into the Bible, and they may get into, watching videos on YouTube more so, or reading different books, written by different conscious people in the New Age movement. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the problem comes in where some of the information that you may be getting from the New Age movement may be, maybe 6 degrees, or say for instance, this may be 6th grade information, but you haven't mastered the 1st grade, the 2nd grade, and the 3rd grade type of information, and you read 6th grade information, so you really aren't going to have a comprehensive knowledge of it. It's kind of like studying algebra, but then you don't understand addition and subtraction, but you're trying to study algebra. You're not going to understand algebra or master algebra until you first master addition and subtraction. So the Bible is important because this represents the records. Like, these are the records that document significant points in our history based on our story or the mysteries. See, in the mystery school, all the Bible is really like a compilation of things that were taught in the mystery schools, and the Bible came from other tablets, like the tablets of Ishtar, the Gilgamesh epics, the Enuma Elish. These are different tablets that you can get to understand the Bible a lot better. And these tablets are written, in different caverns, and they were written in different languages, like in cuneiform. and different languages like that. Well, actually, cuneiform is a script and a way of writing, but they were written in cuneiform. So a lot of times, you know, like of course we can't understand those type of texts, so they have to be translated for us. So we have people like Zachariah Stitchin, Dr. Balakazi York, different people like that that were able to translate these things for us and to help us to understand these things a lot better because they were proficient in that language. However, the bottom line is that once you understand and you read those tablets from whoever translated them, I mean, you know, it may not be 100% correct, the translation, but it's good to go back and read those tablets and then go back and reread the Bible so that you can understand it a lot better. Because in the conscious community, it's not a lot of growth because of the fact that it's a lot of half information being put out. Like, say, for instance, you may say, well, I create my own reality. Anything that happens to me, whether good or evil, is a product of my thoughts, and thoughts become things. And this was something that was really emphasized in the documentary that was put out years ago called The Secret. And this was something that a lot of conscious people jumped on. Then they got into the law of attraction, the law of allowing, the law of vibration. They got into all these different universal laws and trying to use these things to better their lives, but a lot of people are still stuck in the same condition, and it's because you haven't really addressed the rudimentary programming that and the spell that you are up under. See, because a lot of conscious people, they're still programmed up under religion, even though they may say that they're against it, and they, you know, you hear conscious people talking about religious heads like, man, these people just super religious, and I'm glad I'm free, and I'm glad I'm liberated, but at the end of the day, you still look at consciousness as a religion, and you look at and you demonstrate your consciousness as a religion, and this is because you still haven't broke the programming. All truths are half truths. So when you say that I create my own reality and the things that happen to me, whether negative or positive, are a subject of my thoughts, you have to remember that you've been programmed. So you have to decode and decrypt the programming first before you can begin to create your own reality, because your reality is coded. It's locked into a simulation. It's locked into a game. So before you can really begin to create your own reality and apply those are higher conscious principles. This is what I mean by that sixth grade information, but you have to unprogram or reprogram yourself with relearning the stuff that you learned in the first and second grade, which is when you came out of religion, the first, second, and third grade. Because religion represents the first, second, and third grade, and then when you get out of religion, then you graduate into metaphysics and understanding the esoteric aspects of things. So you have the exoteric and the esoteric. The exoteric represents the literal meaning of a thing. So like when you read about the story of Adam and Eve, for instance, in the garden, you don't realize that that was a project. That was a project. That's an event that took place that's representing the Adama projects, because Adam's name in the cuneiform script was Adamu, just like I talked about in the last couple of videos back, and that was a project based on fusing the blood of beings from different planets into the shells and vessels of things that was native to this planet. And you have to understand that. So if you don't understand what you're really reading, then you're not going to be able to get too far. And what you have to remember about the Adamu project is, and I'll point this out based on another point that I wanted to make, the Adamu project was done against the will of the council that governed the universe at that time. So what do I mean by that? There is a council that there is a council of immortals and watchers, and in this council of immortals and watchers, they make sure that things that are demonstrated in, you know, projects that take place in the universe are done up under what's called universal law. And if things are done against universal law, then this is basically like going against the council or rebelling against the council. The council is only here to make sure that universal law stays intact. So when you were brought here to this planet, you came here up under slavery. You were a captive when you first came here to this planet. Most people, or really all the people, if you're in a human shell, you're a human being, no matter what, you are a captive, and that's how you got here. And I'm pointing that out because many conscious people teach this. And they teach that we came here on our free will, we decided to come here, we descended to this plane, and it was our choice, and we decided to do that. But you don't have to remember that that's only a part of your being that decided to do that. And that's what I mean by all truths are half truths. You are what you would call a child of what you would call God. And I have to point that out. When I say you're a child of God, I'm not speaking of the God that you know in religion. That's why you got to go back and watch the other video. I'm speaking of the gods or what they call the Anunnaki that came to this planet in groups of 50 in crafts and decided to create a being to work for them, or a slave to work for them. So you came here as a slave, and some people don't want to believe this, but all the tablets that you mostly read about in creation, no matter what culture you study them from, this same story is told. It doesn't have to be in Sumeria. You can go all over the world and study different tablets, and pretty much the names may change, but the stories stay the same. And you read about humans that saw, or you read about beings that were on this planet that saw gods coming here in different ships and things of that nature, and landing and crashing down and coming to teach them this information, and pretty much essentially abducting them into their culture so that they can use them to do certain work for them. Whether it was building structures, of which I'm going to prove and point out in a minute, because I'm going to show you some of the structures, but the bottom line is whether it was building certain structures, or whether it was mining for gold, or whatever the case may be, you were a servant to these particular beings. And that's something that really has to be understood if you're going to get into this whole conscious thing, is to understand that, because you have to break free from that. So you are a part mortal and a part God. You are children of the Most High God, but at the same time you are immortal, or what some people would call an enocyte, and you were basically fused together with the blood of God, mixed with the flesh and the physical structure of a mortal, or of something that was indigenous to this planet. So you are part extraterrestrial, essentially, and part human. That's anybody that's walking this planet. And this is why you have what's called intelligence. So your intelligence comes from the gods. That's the God aspect of you, the ability to rationalize and reason. Your intelligence, however, you have what's called the beast, the human beast. And they talk about this in Revelation, in the book of Revelation. That's talking about a certain aspect of your body. The Egyptians called it the Khat. The Khat is the beast. This is the part of you that craves things. This is the part of you that gets addicted to things. This is the part of you that needs to constantly be fed and needs to constantly be gratified. And if you don't understand that, see, that's the part of you that blocks you from being able to create your own reality, because that's the slave part of you. And the Khat, or the beast, is very important, because the Khat, or the beast, can take over, or can suppress your intelligence, or the God part of you, which is the intelligence. This is what separates you from a real live beast, like an animal, and a God, is the fact that you are really an animal as far as the body is concerned, because the animals that are on this planet were here before you, and science proves that. So you are younger than the animals here on this planet. However, your body is basically a alchemical infusion of many different parts of this planet. Some reptile, some mammal, and then the rest God. So you are divided into three aspects of your being: reptile, mammal, and then what you would call God, which is, like I said, is intelligence. And the God part of you comes from the blood particles that are in you, and it comes from your soul. The God aspect of you is located in your soul, and the God aspect of you is located in your breath, or your spirit, and your ability to breathe in air. So you have to master your being before you can start talking about creating your own reality. Like, for instance, if you can't overcome certain addictions and vices, there's only so far you're going to be able to go in creating your own reality, because you don't have full control of yourself. You are still locked into the slave mode, because that's what you were when you were brought to this planet. So that's something I want to point out here. Now I want to talk about the Adamu projects, then I'm going to go into After I talk about the Adamu projects, I want to go into the serpent cult and then help you to understand the serpent cult. Now, the Adamu projects kind of link into the serpent cult. What does it say in the Bible? It says that God created Adam and Eve, and He created Adam first and took Eve from the rib of Adam. You have this whole story, and I'm not going to really speak on that because there's a lot of stuff I can say about that. But I want to talk about the story of Adam and Eve and the serpent. And you notice that when God left, He gave instructions to Adam, and Adam gave instructions to Eve. And then when God went away, remember Eve started speaking with this serpent. And this serpent could talk, the serpent could speak, the serpent walked around, and this serpent was like, yo, I'm here to free you. It was basically, the serpent was pretty much, if you listen to the dialogue of the serpent was basically explaining to Eve that she was a slave and that God was giving Adam and Eve partial information or part information. He's saying that I'm going to give you, if you eat of this tree, you'll live forever. You see, I'm going to give you eternal life, and God didn't tell you that. God didn't tell you what this tree was about. And if you eat of this tree, or the forbidden fruit is what they called it, you will be able to live forever. This is what the serpent told Eve, and then Eve went back and told Adam after she partook in the fruit and shared this information knowledge with Adam, and Adam ate of it. And remember, they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden at that point. And this is because they became free thinkers. They broke the spell, and they knew and was able to and they knew that they were in a prison. So they say that God, kicked Adam and Eve out, but really essentially Adam and Eve escaped their slavery that they were up under. And if you notice, Adam and Eve lived for a really long time. I mean, they lived for over like 900 years, according to the Bible, according to these scripts, or what you would call scriptures, which are scripts, based upon this play that we call the Matrix of reality. So Adam and Eve broke away from that and began to learn the lessons of the serpent cult. And they found out that it was other humans on the planet, that they weren't the only beings on the planet. There were other beings on the planet, not necessarily humans, but there were other beings on the planet. They found these things out because they were outside of the garden. And this is what God didn't want them to know. So going back a little bit, this is going to look like I'm mixing up things and digressing, but I'm not. I talked about the Anunnaki coming to this planet, and I talked about Enlil, and I talked about Enki. And what you have to remember about Enlil and Enki is that these were two brothers that essentially disagreed. And Enlil wanted to punish Enki for freeing the slaves and teaching them the real truth. Because Enki represents the serpent in the Bible. So when you read about God and the snake, you're actually reading about two brothers, Enlil and Enki. And Enki, he sided with the indigenous part of this planet. The serpents and the reptilians here on this planet, he mixed in with that and had children based up under that. They were here on this planet before many of your Anunnaki gods came to this planet. There were already reptilians here. So Enki, he was already making missions to this planet way before Enlil and them got here. And that's what needs to be pointed out. Enlil, according to the stories of Enki and Enlil was younger than Enki. So Enki knew more. However, Enlil was what you would call more of a legitimate child, per se. So he was the legitimate, I guess you could say, heir to the throne. So he felt like basically whatever he says goes type of thing. Whereas Enki, he's like, yo, I mean, I understand that, you have all this knowledge, and I understand that you have this title, this position, but you don't know what's really going on here on this planet. Like you just got here, and you sitting up here, doing like partaking in these experiments and things of that nature, and judging some of the stuff that I'm doing, but you don't know what I'm doing because you don't understand how this planet works. So they kind of like went to war with each other. But Enki, he sided with the reptilian or the snake part. Not even just reptilian, but I'm really talking about the snake here, because there's slightly a difference. So I'm not going to cover that here, but I'm talking about the snake here. He sided with the snake cults here on this planet. He already knew about South America. He was very familiar with the terrain here on this planet already. So he went to war with the council Inky went to war with the council, and he was very upset because he felt like what happened with human beings wasn't fair because human beings were created against the will of the council, and these Anunnaki, like Enlil, that was coming here and creating these beings to work for them, and these slaves, they were doing this against the will of the council because you can't birth anything here in this universe without first getting consent from the council. You're not supposed to, but they didn't get consent from the council. They went and did this behind the council's back. Why? Because it's a reason for it. They knew that basically the beings that they were birthing were going to be slaves and they weren't going to be able to have free will. And according to the council, every being on the planet is entitled to free will. And the beings that were using Homo sapiens, or what you call mortals, to work for them, they were doing this against free will. They didn't teach them anything. They didn't initiate them to anything. For the most part, they were animalistic. You know, they was walking around half naked and going out and mining and doing work, you know, and things of that nature, and bringing them back this gold because they didn't want to do the hard work. And Enki, he sympathized with Homo sapiens. So when you read about the snake in the Bible coming in and reteaching them and telling them that, yo, you could break free from this, that's representing the serpent cults. And that's what I want to get into on this video. There's a secret society that's affiliated on this planet with the serpent cults, and this secret society still reigns to this day. Many of them live in the underworld. Many of them went underground. However, they still exist here on this planet, and they left proof. You know, I'm gonna show you proof that they still exist. This is not something that I'm making up. And most of your higher initiates and secret societies and different governments around the world know about these serpent cults that are demonstrating and really running things on this planet. And that's what I want to talk about here. See, the serpent in the scriptures, I'm going to point this out, then I'm going to prove some of the information about the serpent cults to you. See, the serpent in the scriptures turns into what's called a dragon in the last days, what they call the book of Revelation. They say in the last days, the serpent is going to knock a third of the stars out of the sky. This is talking about how the serpent will basically declare war on the beings that came from on high, the beings that came from Orion, the beings that came from all these different star constellations that came here and were really essentially using planet Earth for its resources. This is speaking on how the serpent, which is, you have to remember, the serpent cults were here way before the Anunnaki and those different beings, a part of the Anunnaki mission, came here. See, the Anunnaki mission is comprised of beings from Sirius, some beings from Pleiades, some beings from Orion, beings from those parts. But you got to remember, the serpents that were here on this planet, they come from what's called the Dracos star constellation, which is a different star constellation. So they were here, the Dracos type of reptilians and beings. There's different reptilians, and the Dracos type of reptilians were here long before many of the other reptilians and some beings that even look like humans, because you got to remember there's Anunnaki that look like humans, and these are the beings that people see when they say they saw their double, or they say that they saw someone that looks just like them in a parallel reality or whatnot, and they saw someone. You're seeing your higher self in another realm, and in a dimension that's years ahead of us. I did a video called Future Lives that you may want to check out, and I kind of addressed that, I believe, in that video, but it's kind of old. I did it back in 2012, so I'm not sure, you know, how much information I put in that video, but these are your future selves. And your future selves came here back to this planet to do certain experiments and went back in time to do certain experiments. So when you say you saw your double, you say that you're seeing a future self. Now, something I want to point out here, because I don't know why it's coming into my mind, but someone left a comment on a video I did a couple videos back, and they were asking a question. I'm going to answer your question, because I do, you know, try to read some of the comments. And the question was asked. Now, if you got like a legitimate question, I got to point that out. You know, I'll address it. But if it's some stupid shit about why you got on this, or why you doing that, or how come you said this, or how come, you know, like some baby type of question, I'm not even going to address that. I'm not even going to give you my energy. So I'm not like, don't even expect for me to address those questions. But you know, if people have legitimate questions, I'll answer them on a video based on the comments. And a question was asked: why would these beings that are so advanced and you know they got all of this technology and X, Y, Z, why would they have to come back here to this wretched place in this Earth and get our resources? It seems like that there's all these different parallel Earths and parallel realities. Why didn't they choose a better Earth or a higher dimensional Earth? Why did they need to come here to this reality to extract and get resources? And that's why I don't believe this story. Well, what you got to remember is that as sci-fi as we like to get, and uh, as much as we like to use our imagination about different things that, you know, different scientific things or different metaphysical principles and things that, you know, we read, you have to remember that they still function off of real life reality. And say, for instance, like what do I mean by that? Because I know I'm not making myself clear here. In order for you to travel in space and to go into different time zones and different time warps, you have to have a technology that's able to do that so that you can stay alive. Everything is real at the same time. So just because these beings are higher beings and they're considered gods and all of this, that, and the third, the only thing that makes them higher and gods and higher beings is their intelligence and their ability to know how to use certain technology, but they still have to stick to the rules of the universe. They still have to understand the laws of gravity in order to break the laws. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some beings that are past the laws of gravity, but you can't surpass the laws of gravity unless you understand the laws of gravity first. So these beings that are going back and forth, getting different resources, they're physical beings. So they still had to come to this planet because this is what you call a third dimensional planet based on matter. This is a material planet, and these are material beings, so they still need materials to bring back to their planet, which is a material reality as well. But when they bring these materials back to their planet, they have to partake in a science called alchemy and change the form of the different minerals and resources that they may extract so that they can use them on their reality. And they have to know how to scientifically do that. And this is and this is how they live a little bit longer, because the molecules that they're made up of may be made up of what's called exotic matter, or matter that's not the exact same density as our matter that we have in these physical shells. However, it's still matter. So they still have to come to this planet to get certain resources and certain materials. When you talk about different Earths, like the 4-dimensional Earth, 5-dimensional Earth, 6-dimensional Earth, when you start talking about anything over 5D in general, you're speaking of a non-material reality. You're speaking of a reality that is based on thought form. So the rules are different. These beings that came here were still in 4D type of realities. Yeah, they may have been traveling from faraway star constellations, and they may have been way ahead of us, and they got all this knowledge, but they still have to stick to the rules. So I hope I'm answering your question on that. So when you research these stories, and I talk about these stories, you have to remember that these beings from these planets are scientists, they're mineralists. They still work with the resources found on different planets, and the bottom line is that Earth is one of the closest places that beings can come from, like Sirius, because all these beings are really coming from like Sirius, Arcturus, and places like that, and getting resources. That's a close mission for them. So for them, it's better to go to somewhere like Earth because it's close for them. I mean, it may seem far to us. It's so many light years away to us. So to us, it's like, man, that's far, far away. Why would they come all the way here when they could have just went somewhere else and got the gold? But you got to think, there's really not too many places that you can go that produces gold still in the universe right now, or in the galaxy, in this particular part of the galaxy. Because they come from the 19th galaxy, but we're in like what's called the 18th galaxy. So that's kind of close for them. They can travel in galaxies based on traveling in the speed of light. They can get here pretty quick because they travel, the speed of light. So it doesn't really take them that long to get here. And it's just that we don't understand, or at least scientists haven't revealed how to travel at the speed of light. So we think it's impossible. We think that if we're traveling past the speed of sound, that we'll be too heavy and we'll explode. When, remember, they know how to shift the molecules and shift the different components of their body a certain type of way so that they can travel and do these things. And so they won't, get weighed down by, gravity or what may have you, and they won't explode. So this is how they do. This is how they demonstrate things. So you have to keep all this stuff in mind or whatever. When you're researching these things, try to do research and try to figure out, like, okay, if they saying that beings came here in spaceships and traveling at the speed of light, is this possible? Is there a technology out there that may be possible for humans to travel at the speed of light? And yes, it is. We haven't mastered it yet, but if you study quantum physics, the first thing you learn is that we are not particles. We are waves. We are light. So the only thing they're doing is that they're tapping into that. Quantum physics teaches us this. We are light. Even in our physical shell, we are light. We are not particles. Particles do not exist. We think they do, because we're light. Remember, we're slaves to this reality. So we think that they do, but we can transform our shells into light. And I know you're going to have idiots out there that are like, why don't you do it then? Why don't you? You're over here talking about this stuff. That's not my job. This is not the phase of our story and the mysteries that we're in. We're not ready for those things right now. And it's our job to awaken. Like, we're in what's called the awakening period. So it's to awaken you to the idea that this is possible, so that generations down the line, you will be able to travel at the speed of light. You will be able to turn your human flesh into flesh divine. And that's what they call it in the different mystery books. They says that Jesus was able to transform or transmutate his human flesh into flesh divine, and this is how he was able to walk on water and do certain miracles and things of that nature that may seem impossible to do. Jesus was an alchemist, a scientist, and he was a prophet, but being a prophet was a title that didn't have anything to do with being chosen one of anything. It was about being able to master yourself and master the elements of your body. And there are yogis that can levitate. There are people on this planet that only eat 6 and 7 times a year. And when you eat 6 or 7 times a year, you naturally become levitt. And this is how you begin to introduce yourself to levitating and traveling at the speed of light. And this is what I mean by you have to first discipline and train your body before you can do these things. So beings in the serpent cult, getting back to the serpent cult, they did things like they used psychedelic drugs. And when you read about the forbidden fruit was actually a psychedelic drug. And this is something that's against religion. This is something that's banned in the cities, or banned in most of the places around the world. Any place that's considered a city, most of the time they ban psychedelic drugs, because most of the cities are up under Vatican City, and they own you, so you can't bring anything into their garden, which is really just a detention center or something like that. You can't bring anything outside of, from the outside world into their garden, or in the what you would call the bohemian world, or what you would call the pagan world. You can't bring anything from the pagan world into the garden, or into this detention center, or what I call the matrix. Just like getting locked up. When you get locked up, you can't bring nothing from the outside world in, right? Unless you got some people that sneak in, burn their phones and shit like that, and they call that commissary or whatever. But at the end of the day, you can't bring anything from the outside world. Like, once you're in there, you're in there. Well, that's the same thing that they do. These different beings that control you, make sure that you can't experiment with psychedelic drugs and things like that, because they know that will free you, and you'll begin to see the reality for what it is. I know I told you guys that I don't do things like, I don't smoke weed and things like that, but if I was in a place that weed was legal, hopefully, I'll get there, I wouldn't have no problem with smoking weed. I wouldn't have no problem with shrooming, or no problem with experimenting with certain psychedelics, because I know these are things that are going to help you to free your mind and to be able to see reality for what it is. Luckily, I'm still able to meditate in this reality, and I'm able to get to those places in my dreams, in my meditative states, but it's nothing like experiencing these things in a waking state, like when you experiment with different psychedelics. So the forbidden fruit, that was a psychedelic. That's all it really was. Eve was up there shrooming with the snake. That's all she was really doing. So, and this may be, a lot, but it's the truth is the truth. So the serpent cults, you know, once you start getting into those psychedelics and, you know, you free your mind, you begin to see a new way of doing things. So the serpent cults left proof, and that's what I'm going to show you now. They left firm proof of their existence here in this matrix. And one of their bases, the serpent cult, they came from the Serpent Mounds out of Ohio. Shout out to my Ohio cats. All you know that I'm indigenous from Ohio. And the Serpent Mounds in Ohio, here's a picture of it. Just kind of want you to see it and focus in on it. This is not a good picture of it, but this is a picture from like a helicopter view of the Serpent Mounds in Ohio. And this is one of the bases of the serpent cult. And the Serpent Mounds in Ohio is it took sophisticated architecture in order to build the Serpent Mounds in Ohio. The Serpent Mounds in Ohio represent underground cities and bases that are located up under it. And the structure is not very high off the ground. And I have been there. The structures aren't very high off the ground, but however, they go deep into the ground, and there's chambers and caverns underneath the Serpent Mounds. And I'm sure the people that control those lands and those parks that the Serpent Mounds are in firmly know that these things exist, but they're not going to tell you. But they do have underground secret caverns and all kind of mysteries associated with the Serpent Mounds. But I'm bringing these things up for a reason. See, the serpent cult, they left a mark all over the planet of their existence. And if you want to get initiated into their little order, there are ways to get initiated, but you can't bring anything from this world into their world. So you got to come as a bohemian. You can't really come there and expect to come back the same. They have what's called the Mount Lee tombs. The Mount Lee tombs. And the Mount Lee tombs, these are tombs in China. I believe I have a picture of it. Might not have it here, but you can Google the Mount Lee tombs. And these are tombs in China I don't have a picture of it here, but these are tombs in China that were created by the serpent people. And the first emperor of China is buried in the Mount Lee tombs. Now I'm going to point something out here about the global empire that they had set up, because they had a global empire set up, and they were up under the rule of what's called an emperor. Not a king, not a president, not a bishop or, a minister or anything like that. They were up under the rule of what's called an emperor. And this is the title that they use because this takes us back before religion. All of those titles that I named, king, minister, bishop, these are all religious titles, believe it or not. It's nothing against the kings, and queens of this day, but you are, as a title, you are up under the doctrine of the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church conquered the surface of the planet, and they were allowed to do that. You got to remember that. They were allowed to do that, and the emperors decided they didn't want the surface anymore because they got hit to the underground earth, the secret earth. There's a movie called They Live that you can get. And in this movie, They Live, when they found the base, I'm not going to tell you the whole movie, but these group of human beings found the base of these extraterrestrials that were controlling their reality. And this movie was made back in the 70s. They were trying to tell you about this shit, to let you know it was real. They found the underground base, and the base was underground, where the extraterrestrials lived at. And they didn't even want, and they were broadcasting all their television stations, all of that up underground. And that's what's really going on to this day. There are politicians that are initiated into the serpent cults. And this is why they say politicians are snakes, man. They two-faced. They say one thing and do the other. They fork-tongued. That's how they taught to be. They two-faced because snakes know that you are a mortal, a homo sapien. And they're going to always look at you like that. And they're going to look at you like, I can tell you anything, and I'm not going to tell you everything because you don't understand everything, so you are a baby until you get initiated because you choose to be up under the Anunnaki, and they don't get along with the Anunnaki. Remember, they're up under Enki. He was an Anunnaki, but remember he broke away, so they're up under people in the serpent cults. They're up under Enki, and Enlil represents the religious adherents and people that choose to be up under religion. So people that are up under Enki, these are like the politicians. They don't really too much, like a lot of politicians. They'll say they go to church and they're Christian and all that, but at the end of the day, they straight bohemian. They straight believe in metaphysics, and they just act like they're religious and go to church and act and play the part. Because they're snakes. That's what the snakes teach them to do. They say if you go to the surface, you act like you're one of them because you don't want to blow your cover. They're secret agents for the serpent cults that are still here on this planet today, and that still rule. So a lot of people say they hate politicians. It's all about God, and we don't need to put our faith in the politician or what may have you. But the thing about the politician is that they know a little bit more about how the world works. And that's why they play both sides the way they do, and they change. And one politician may say one thing, and next week he on TV's contradicting everything he just said, and they'll do that right in public, and people still believe in them because they know the game, and they know that you're a Homo sapien, a human being, and you don't know no better. So they treat you as such. So you got pyramids. Basically, the serpent cult, this is the group that built the pyramids. Their building style and their architecture cannot be matched to this day. You have to remember that you can't build a pyramid, even certain architects out there. You don't know how to build a pyramid. In the Mount Lee tombs, they got oceans and rivers in those tombs, filled up with mercury, going into the surface of the planet. So they don't want to have anything to do with, going into the caverns of the planet. They don't want to have anything to do with the surface of the planet, because the surface of the planet is really like hell to them. And heaven was located in the center of the earth, or in the pockets and the caverns of the earth. And they knew this. There's, numerous portals and ports that they, have to get into the surface of the earth. But again, you may be stopped, you may be killed. Most people don't make it back. You may not make it too far. You may not even get a chance to meet any of the initiates in these different orders and groups, because they're going to be able to read your spirit. They're going to be able to read your mind, and they're going to know whether or not, it's not really about being sincere, it's about whether or not you're ready. It's not really about sincerity. It's about looking at your spirit and saying, like, okay, that person's ready. They have no fear in them, because you can't have any fear in you. In order to get initiated into a lot of these schools, you can't have any fear. It's like being able to walk up to a rabid dog and walk past them without jumping. They're going to put you through initiation after initiation. The Dogon people, of Mali, and the different Mayans and the Aztecs in South America, they had initiations that, you got to walk through a pit of snakes. If you can't walk through this pit of snakes, then you can't go to the next level. This is the type of stuff, you call it horror movies, but this is the type of stuff that you're going to have to go through if you want to really get an understanding of what's really going on this planet. You have to break away from your fears, totally break away from your fears. They have another tomb, or another city, or a plaza full of different structures that humans can't build to this day. This is the tomb of Nimrod, the guy that I spoke about. It's called the tomb of Nimrut, the tomb of Nimrut. And in the tomb of Nimrut, at one point, millions of people lived there. The tomb of Nimrut is now, or was founded by what's called the Khmer Empire. The Khmer Empire, and they are the group that hold the secrets and the mysteries on what's going on with the tomb of Nimrut. And this is the guy Nimrod that I spoke about. So you read about the Tower of Babel, and they show you the Tower of Babel, the pictures that they have or whatnot. And they say that it was an uncompleted mission, and they say he wasn't able to finish it. But what they don't tell you is that he already had other building complexes across Turkey, in the area where he was from, because that's where he was from, Turkey, in that area in the Middle East. So he had other building structures that he was able to complete, and that was just one that he was working on. That was like an ultimate building structure that he wasn't able to complete. So Nimrod, he went far. He didn't get to achieve what he wanted to achieve, which was to be able to go from the underworld and be able to reach the hierarchy and go all the way to Sirius and talk to the highest Anunnaki and go past Enlil and those people, on the council, because he wanted to ask Anu, is what they called him. He wanted to ask Anu, why did you create human beings, or why did you allow them to do X, Y, and Z? And he wanted to prove that human beings were now ready for the final frontier so that they can get the Anunnaki out of their life. Because the council puts it like this: even though human beings were created against the will of the council, they can't take up for human beings unless human beings show an interest in breaking free. If you don't have an interest in breaking free from the matrix and from the control factors that the Anunnaki, which I just told you was really the whole religious hierarchy, then they're not going to help you break away. And Nimrod wanted to show and prove that, yo, we're ready as a group. Human beings are ready, so get this Anunnaki off our planet, and we're ready to come to the council. And we want to put a representative, one of ours, on the council, just like, the reptilians got a representative, and the Arcturians got a representative. We on planet Earth want a representative. We're no longer slaves anymore. We are now gods, just like other beings have the ability to be gods. And gods come in ranks, just like the Master taught us. And we want to have a ranking on the council, but we never really got that far. But maybe we did, and maybe you just don't know about it. And I'll just kind of leave that for your imagination, because I believe that there are certain groups of secret societies here on this planet that you may correspond with in real time that do have access to the immortals and do have access to the watchers and have totally broke free from the control and are totally sovereign. I do believe there are secret societies that are totally sovereign here on this planet and have been fully initiated into the serpent cult, because it's different levels. What you have to do is that you got to get initiated into the serpent cult first, break free from the spell of being Homo sapiens, and then from there, the serpent cult will take you into the council and take you to the group of watchers. That, not that they report to, because they don't report to the watchers, but they go, that's how you get into the council. See, there's a council, just like in the Matrix. Remember that Morpheus was addressing his council, and it was beings that look like all kind of gruesome beings that look like this and look like that. That's how the council is set up. It's a council here on this earth. They have meetings here on this earth, but they also have different meetings in different star constellations, because there's portals located in this earth, caverns in this earth, that take you straight to Sirius in less time than what you think by going and looking out. So you're stuck on looking out. And you think that the only way to get to Sirius is by leaving the planet that way, like the way NASA shows you, where they launch off space missions and you go out into space, and that's how you get to Sirius and Pleiades and all of that. When you taking a long way, Jack. They got portals that get you there quicker. They finding portals all over the planet Earth right about now. And you can transport yourself a lot quicker and a lot easier and a lot more comfortable and save a lot of damn time, so that when you come back, half your family ain't even existing no more. And you can get back here in no time. But you don't know about these things because you haven't been initiated into the secrets of the underworld. I have some experiences where I came close on the astral realm, and my astral body was taken there, and I've seen a lot of different star constellations, and I've sat, in different council meetings. However, I have not yet to be physically invited, but I'm working on that. I know what I must do, but I've yet to be physically invited, but I have seen it and was able to take a glimpse of it on the astral realm, and I saw some stuff. I'm not going to go into it here, but I talked about it with different people privately, through certain consultations, and people that just know me. I saw some stuff that will blow your mind, like people that you thought was dead still exists. I'm talking about people that's supposed to be dead 1,000 years ago, still walking around down there in the underworld, because you can live longer, because the gravity's different down there. The water's different down there. They have a different sun down there. The sun here is designed to decay you, whereas the sun down there is designed to replenish you. They have what's called the cure of death down there. You don't have to die. Death is a disease. They have the cure down there, and the cure is their environment. So why do you think the emperors gave people to serve? They're like, y'all can have this shit. Kings, queen, popes, and go ahead. Go ahead and reign free, because we cool down here. The emperor in China, he still probably chilling down there. And that's why they say that this is the tomb of this pharaoh, and this is the tomb of that pharaoh. Why would the Egyptians spend so much time? I'm going to shut down after this. I'm pretty much done talking. It's just a conversation, whatever. But why would the Egyptians spend so much time building tombs to die? You think they was really dying? Nah. You got it all backwards, man. They ain't dead. Why was they taking all this stuff with them, and they come and they do grave robbing, they find out They got all these, they got marijuana down there. They got beer and all kind of stuff. They brought gold, blocks of gold. Why did they spend so much time putting all this stuff in caskets? They ain't dead. They just left a mummy there and made it look like they was there, and they went to some portal in a tomb and went to the underworld. That's what the tomb really is talking about. They faked their deaths. That's been going on for the beginning of the time. They faked their deaths and made it, at some point, that's an initiation that you go through where you have to die on the surface. You make everybody think that you're gone and you're never coming back on the surface, and then that's when you go into your next life. Just like Adolf Hitler and them did it. Adolf Hitler didn't die in that fire. He went down to South America or Argentina and lived down there. And some people say he just recently died, or he might still be alive. We don't really know, but he didn't die. And just like I told you, politicians are initiating this order. They know about the order of the snake. This is how snakes do. They shed their skin. They replenish themselves. It's just like cats. Cats are part of the order of the snake. Cats, they say, have 9 lives. This is metaphysical. This is, going into the doctrine of the cat. This is why the Egyptians, a lot of them wore cat heads. A lot of them had snakes coming out of their fezzes and their headdresses, because they were initiated into the order of the snake. They were snakes. It's a secret order that still exists to this day. I'm trying to tell you, man, it's real. So don't think that when I'm making these videos and talking about this different information that I'm just talking about some stuff that's not going on, it's not real. It's just that you don't know about it. And it's my job. I have a job to do. Like what I do here on this channel is a part of my job, and it's my job to, and while I'm here on the surface, who knows? One day I'll probably get initiated and won't be amongst you, but I'm nobody of importance. Anybody can do this, so I'm not trying to make it like I'm somebody special or anything like that, but I'm just saying, one day once I make my initiation and finally embrace my life mission, you might not see me amongst you, but know that it's real. You got to know that it's real. See, some people, they talk about their higher life purpose, and they're like, man, I want to find my higher life purpose. I want to find out why I was really here and why I'm, destined to do, like, what am I destined to do? You can't even find your higher life purpose on the surface of the planet. You are a slave, man. Your life purpose here on the surface, this is what I believe. You might not believe it, take it or let it alone, but your higher life purpose here on the surface of this planet is to break free from it. You ain't going to find your true purpose as like a scientist or a real life advanced being until you get into the initiate into the center of the earth and into the inner earth mysteries. You better keep it real. I mean, conscious people, they talking all that. Your job is to help people to break free. If you got people that you are an influential person, you got people listening to you, start teaching the real deal. Take these people deep and try to help a certain group of people break free, because that's going to help you make your initiation into going into some of the deeper mysteries that I'm speaking of. If you just get caught up on money and people giving you money and things of that nature, and that's the end all be all, you're going to always be stuck here. It's bigger than money. I mean, don't get me wrong, money is a doctrine. That's a doctrine that you have to master. But a lot of conscious people are pacified. You might start making $1 million a year, being a big-time minister, and the only reason why you're making all that money is because you're not teaching people the real deal. So they're going to pay you to shut the fuck up and only say a certain amount of information, and you're going to get paid good. That's not being a leader. You stuck. That's not your life mission. Your life mission, if you got influence, is to help people. If you really believe in spirituality, I'm saying. If you really believe in spirituality is to help people to break free. People that don't have influence right now. Your life mission is to begin to believe in yourself, reprogram yourself so that you can become influential. And so that you can get a group of mortals or human beings to listen to you and teach them to be gods and raise them up. It could just be your friends. Don't have to be up here on YouTube or anything, nothing big. It could just be your friends, and your job is to raise your friends up. Teach them to be gods. Teach them to be immortals. Initiate them. Study as much as you can. Put as much knowledge in yourself as you can, but at the same time, stay in tune with the streets. Stay in tune with the people. Never forget where you came from. That's when Enki taught. Versus Enlil. Enlil means to be on high. So he was on his high horse. Enki was down low like a snake. You see, the snake cult is ran by women because the female sex drive, and they, and when you read about brothels and orgies, all that is done in snake cults. Sexual rituals, all that's done in snake cults because women represent, like I said, alternating current. and a snake moves like a S. So that's why women, when they created women, mortal women, they used the snake. When they created mortal men, they used the toad or the frog. Hipping you on this stuff, and I'll do another video on sex, talking more about that later. But I just want to drop a few jewels on you just to let you know. So you have to embrace the feminine principle to be in the snake cult. You got to understand that women were here on this planet, you know, before men, the physical shells of men. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down. I thank you for listening. I thank you for watching. I've overstayed my welcome. This video has been very long, but if you watched it, appreciate it. Until my next, we out. Peace.